Recording for this section so I can show you a couple of these videos, and the videos are definitely linked on Blackboard so you can go and watch them your own and show them to your friends and family. Yeah, gotta do something to pass the time, right? All right, so here we go. So here are annelids, and this is an earthworm, and that would be one example of an annelid. And so Lumbricus is the name of the genus of earthworms. And on the inside, these guys are going to have reduplicated organs. So they'll have like 5 little tiny miniature hearts all there in a row at the beginning. And the idea was that we were going to dissect a ragworm. And the hearts don't really hang down like they do on here. They look more like little bumps along the main blood vessel. But sure enough, there's one little bump in each segment, and you can find them. They're there. A little brain up at the front, and then mostly this is a tube for processing and extracting nutrients from whatever it is that they're eating. So they'll eat soil with a bit of leaf litter in it, and that's mostly how they're going to work. And here we go. They have a bunch of different segments, and the mouth actually occurs on the second segment of the little embryo right there. So imagine the red is lipstick there. The anus is going to be on the very last segment, and as these things grow, they're only going to grow right here. So right one segment before the anal segment, that's the one that's going to grow. And so yeah, we'll just keep putting in new segments here and pushing the front end further out. And so yeah, that is how an annelid is structured. And so we better go look at some annelids. Let's go meet some annelids. So we're going to start out with these weird and wonderful deep sea worms. So all right, let's see them. I'll leave the volume up, but we'll do a little...
crawly ones you find on the sidewalk after a rain shower.
We'll do a little commentary.
However, in the deep sea, you can find an incredible diversity of worms living in an amazing assortment of ways. Many of these are polychaete worms that are cousins to the garden variety earthworm.
So polychaete worm is a term that's like one of those old terms that we don't really use anymore because it doesn't mean anything. It doesn't tell you anything in terms of genetics. There are polychaete worms on every single major branch of the annelid tree. And so it's a polyphyletic term at the very best.
Polychaetes have segmented bodies with paddle-like feet, or parapodia, on each segment. Most have bristles or chaetae that they use for defense, crawling, or swimming.
Yeah, so these don't have legs or arms or any limbs at all, but they do have little nubs that stick out, and they have little bristles on the end of the nubs that are sometimes formed up into something like a paddle. And so they use these as if they were an arm or a leg. It's just that they're not built the same way that arms and legs are on other groups of animals. That's the idea here. So have a look at a couple more of these. They're pretty cool.
Polychaete worms are common in the ocean. About 8,000 species have been described so far, but many new species are still being discovered. On the seafloor, polychaete worms burrow in deep sea mud, crawl along rocky canyon walls, colonize superheated hydrothermal vents, and even eat decaying well skeletons. But perhaps the most extraordinary polychaetes live in the midwater, swimming or drifting deep below the ocean surface, but far above the bottom. Flotta and Swimma are 2 remarkable worms that live in the depths of Monterey Canyon. They swim by undulating their bodies while beating multiple paddle-like appendages. In the midwater, there is no place to hide, so these worms have protective sharp spines as well as amazing glowing organs that may startle or distract potential predators. Believe it or not, this is another kind of polychaete worm. It typically drifts about 1,000 meters below the ocean's surface, collecting food particles using a mucus net that functions much like a spider's web. One of several new species recently described by scientists at the Monterey Bay Aquarium Research Institute, this worm was so weird that researchers had to use genetic testing to figure out how it fit into the tree of life.
Okay, so there's going to be another thing we're going to cover right at the end that's actually a chordate, a relative of ours, but it is also going to make a different shaped mucus net, And it's going to go fishing for little tiny particles in the mid to deep ocean, just like this guy. So it's a similar strategy evolved from two really different parts of the tree of life.
They named it Chaetopteris pugaporcinus. The species name means rump of a pig because researchers decided that was a fitting description. Wouldn't you agree?
I would.
Another worm that collects food using a mucus net is Peobius. Only about 1 inch long, this worm doesn't have any obvious segments, parapodia, or chaetae, yet it is still a polychaete. It wriggles vigorously when disturbed and is one of the most abundant animals researchers see in the midwaters of Monterey Bay. Tomopteris, the dancing bristleworm, is an active swimmer using large fleshy parapodia for bursts of rapid speed. These worms have transparent bodies to conceal them from unwary prey and are voracious predators on other drifting animals.
You can really see the gut.
They can
there.
also emit a brilliant yellow glow to distract potential predators. Tomopterid worms create round egg masses to protect their babies until the young worms grow large enough to break free and begin hunting in the open ocean. The next time you're digging around in your garden and come across a
Earthworms, send them to the Monterey Bay Aquarium. Yeah. All right. Care of the nice lady. Let's go. Polychaete worms. So again, polychaete, stupid, outdated term, but they're really cool worms. This would be a ragworm. This is the thing that we were going to dissect, and they're super gross when you get them out of the tub, but they're pretty neat. And they've got these bristles. It's almost like fangs that are tucked up inside of them. And so there you go. And so remember, these are not, it looks like a bunch of legs, right? It looks kind of like a centipede. They are not anything like a centipede. Those are arthropods. These are just body segments, and they can undulate and move them from side to side. So they have waves of muscular contraction, and yeah, the legs are essentially hydraulic. They can fill them up and stick them out. So parapodia, I think, is the proper name for these. They're not actually legs, but they'll have little bristles on the end that'll act just like little claws to help it dig or crawl. So yeah, pretty neat. Okay. Next one. This is a nice little close-up of a polychaete. You can really see what's going on in there. You can see the little beady red eyes up here at the front. And there we go. Zoom. Yeah, look at those little eyes. And so all these things, even though they look like legs, you've got various sensory antennae, and then there you can see it. So we've got those little pseudopodia, and we've got the bristles coming out of them. And so it's just another way to move around that is fundamentally different from regular legs and arms like we are used to. So that's a neat thing. And then we got one last one. Here we go.
Meet Swimma bombaviridis, a newly discovered species found at great depths of the Pacific Ocean that uses an interesting way to evade predators. Called green bombers by researchers, the worms were described in the August 21st edition of the journal Science, along with 6 other related species. Using remotely operated submersibles, researchers led by Karen Osborne of the Scripps Institution of Oceanography discovered the new species at depths ranging from 6,000 to 12,000 feet off the coasts of California and Oregon. A few were also found in the Philippines. What makes these green bombers unique is their ability to drop brilliantly glowing green bombs to distract predators. With sizes ranging from less than an inch up to 3.5 inches, each tiny worm is equipped with 8 of these bombs or sacs that glow or bioluminesce only upon release from their bodies. Scientists believe they're released when the blind worms sense danger, because upon deployment the worms use their bristles to swim backward.
Shooting off green bioluminescent bombs is a novel behavior, and it's a very exciting discovery, and it allows us to realize how little we actually know about the marine environment in deep water.
All right. So if you want to talk about green bomber worms on one of your test questions, that's going to be great. The test questions for this one are going to be, and we'll get to that in a minute. The test questions are going to be you're going to tell me some examples, and you can pick out the examples that you want, but we're covering adaptations. So, what are some examples of ways that worms have adapted to their environments that helps them to feed or to survive? And so, talking about the little capsules on the green bomber worms would be great. And you can look up a little bit more about those. They have some more about them in the paper. The name of the worm was on that previous video. And yeah, it was what? Swima bomba verdis, I believe. Okay. Last little bit of this section. So, worms are definitely in the nephrozoa, and so they have to have these little things. And so, nephrostomes, it's going to be a little hole opening in one chamber that's going to take out toxins, basically, and it's going to feed it out and boop, drop it out at the outside. And so, this entire structure is a metanephridium. It's basically like a not very good kidney, but it's good enough for the annelid. And so each segment is basically filtering out the waste from the segment that comes before it. So that's the idea there. And yeah, so there are similar features in terms of most of these, but Sapuncula and Echiura were originally called different phyla because they have or lack different things. Now, as we learn more about these, not all annelids will actually have setae. They're usually present at some stage. Those are the little bristles, and sapunculads never do. But it turns out there are other members of this group that actually don't, and so these peanut worms, sapuncula, and spoon worms, Echiura, both do fit inside of the Annelida. And then this is what a cross section would look like. We would often dissect a worm, and we have some slides. But you can get a look at that. So we've got great big strong muscles that are going to attach from the walls to the bottom. And we've got a little ventral nerve cord and a dorsal blood vessel right there and a ventral blood vessel. So blood vessels on either side. They're going to wrap around the body basically. Yeah, the gut is running right through the middle, and that is the star of the show. That is the big reason why a worm is so long. It's so it can digest all of its food. Okay, there we go. That's the second one.